Drop it on them random.
What up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of That Time in Hip Hop, a podcast about the nostalgia, the history, and more importantly, the preservation of hip hop music and culture. I am your host, Vegas of Hip Hop Now podcast. I got the homie Tone with me of IntoTheDome.com. What's good, fam? You got the new place now. What's up?
Oh man, just trying to get settled in, brother. So we moving boxes, man, and drinking good old ice water.
Yeah, after moving, shit, water be tasting like Hennessy or some shit. Like,
Whew, for real.
Kind of helping. But if you're watching this for the first time, man, it's all about the people, the places, the events, the producers, the rappers, the break dancers, the movies, everything that encompasses hip hop music and culture. We try to come from a perspective, a historical perspective, whether that be all the way back in the 70s to somewhere up to the recent 2000s, man. And we got a special show for y'all today. So make sure you subscribe to this podcast, comment on this podcast when you hear things, or if you want to share your thoughts. And also, for sure, if you enjoy what you hear and see, because we have an audio version also, make sure that you share this podcast with others that you know enjoy hip-hop content, because honestly, that's the only way we can keep it going. And more importantly, you know, that's what we do. It's hip-hop. We love the conversation. Yo, which album is better? Check out this podcast. We're going to argue about it at lunch. Whatever you do. You know what I'm saying? But let's get right into the business at hand. And we like to do a segment called This Week in Hip Hop. And This Week in Hip Hop on August 11th, 1991, Cypress Hill released their debut album, Cypress Hill, led by the singles, How I Could Just Kill a Man, the sort of shoddy hand on the pump joint, Tone, Cypress Hill. First time you heard Be Real, first time you heard them sort of video, man. What are your thoughts about this classic?
Yeah, first things first. I had never heard of Cypress Hill, and I was turning Rap City and saw the video. I had heard the beats, and I think I had heard like the ending of the song on the radio, but I finally heard the entire song when I saw the video, and I was like, "Yo, the dude Be Real voice was very distinct. Never heard nothing like it. The beat was very hard, very catchy. They still play that song in clubs to this day. You know what I'm saying? On all old school sets, you hear that Cypress Hill, How Can I Kill a Man come in real quick, and the crowd still jumping and dancing, having a good time with that track, man. It's a legendary track of a dope debut album. The Funky Feel one is a dope joint, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. They had that Latino joint that was paying homage to their culture as well. So that was a big song for Cypress Hill and for their movement. You also had Pigs. You think about the track Pigs, it's about police and all the different ways they describe how they looked at police. And it's very interesting when you go back and listen to that track Pigs now. But DJ Muggs killed the production. Muggs is one of the dopest producers in hip-hop history, really, if you look at his body of work. The engineering on the album was dope. Sonically, it was dope. What can you say, man? It's a classic. It stood the test of time. It still sounds good to this day. But yeah, man, my first impression was like, yo, I had never heard nothing like it. They're very unique. I didn't really know much about Sin Dog. I still don't know his full place, in Cypress Hill. Maybe he does ad libs. So, whatever. And Muggs, of course, is the generic producer. But Be Real is the MC, man. And Be Real, again, he stood the test of time. And just real quick, that How Can I Kill a Man video, I actually watched it about an hour ago. And I forgot that Q-Tip and Ice Cube were the featured stars on the video. It shot to them quite a few times on the video, and they were showing love to the song, man. So, yeah, Cypress debut album, man, very dope. It got 5 stars on allmusic.com. It got a high rating on Pitchfork. It got a high rating on Rolling Stones. It's classic.
Yeah, man. I remember the first time I even saw that name in New York. New York City, there's a spot called Cypress Hills. So I just assumed they was from there when I heard that. I was like, oh, okay, they from here. But I remember seeing that video, and especially when I later heard Hand on the Pump, I'm like, man, these dudes is dangerous. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They making dangerous music, man. But it was, Latinos, and it was kind of dope because, a lot of times, in history of hip hop, you really get people who only really mention Pun, which is crazy because it's not like he was the first. There was plenty of rappers, you know what I'm saying, who are Latin rappers or whatever, who were there before him. But he was probably the most successful, especially out the gate. But Cypress Hill, nonetheless, one of the forgotten groups. Like you said, Zindo, maybe he's more like Vinny from Naughty by Nature. Like he's kind of there.
Oh, don't do Vinny like that, man.
I mean, like he's kind. Hey, Sin Dog has some songs though, just like Vinny, but never really
and you know what?
merged. Mm-hmm.
And let me say this too, real quick. That misconception a lot of people have about Big Pun being his first Latino star, what have you, as far as going platinum. But Cypress Hill, this debut album went double platinum. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And that was just one of many. Cypress Hill sold millions of records. Their first 3 albums were all like platinum albums, man. They were big selling group. They were on tour also. I actually saw them open up for Public Enemy here in North Carolina back in the mid-'90s. With Public Enemy, Gangstar, the Fugees, and the Flip Mode Squad. Cypress Hill, they were very dope live, man. And I remember how loud they were live, like Public Enemy were. They was very loud. The instruments were very loud. You know what I'm saying? It was like a rock concert with Cypress Hill, man. So, yeah, big up to Cypress Hill. A lot of people don't hold them in the high esteem they should be held in for their success and their innovation and their influence on the Latin community and in hip-hop in general.
Yeah, I think what people confuse between Pun and everybody else is the fact that I believe Pun was the first Latino rapper to be nominated for a Grammy. I think that's what they confuse.
That might be it.
So they think of his, commercial success as far as selling albums as, he was the only successful one, but that shit ain't true. But nevertheless, out of all the records on there, I think the one that still gets me is Stoned is the Way of the Walk. I just love the whole vibe of that record. I'm not even like a head, not like that. But it just captured what the song was about. And it's not even a long song. It's under 3 minutes. If you are a younger cat and you never heard of Cypress Hill, or maybe you heard a song here and there, maybe you've heard Stoned is the Way of the Walk in one of the movies, because it still gets burned in recent movies, typically about weed, or at least the scene may be about weed. But yeah, Cypress Hill's debut album, self-titled album, Cypress Hill, out of 1991. Definite hip-hop classic, one of the best groups of all times. And they have more than one album, so go and check out all of that, because it's that's what we do, man. We support hip-hop. But we're going to get right into it. If you haven't seen in the background, what I'm saying, we are talking about that man, J. Cole, but we're talking about one project in particular, and we're going to get into all of it about him. But Tone, tell these people what they came to hear, man. What's this topic about today?
Yeah, today, man, that time in hip-hop, November the 12th, 2010, J. Cole released his 3rd mixtape, Friday Night Lights. And as I always say, let me tell you, man, when I first caught Friday Night Lights, I might have got from Dat Piff. Shout out to Dat Piff. I'm not sure because it was 8 years ago, but I remember getting it, putting on CD, riding in the car to it, and I was like, "Yo, this should have been his debut album. Why is this a mixtape?" You know what I'm saying? And he had already done very well with the Come Up that came out 2007. And then when he did the Warm Up in 2009, now in 2009, he actually was on Rock Nation, actually for the Warm Up. Not the Come Up, he was just on the Dreamville, he was doing his own little independent thing. But by the time he did the Warm Up, he had officially gotten signed, but he was a long way from doing a debut album. Actually, they were still grooming him and trying to find a way to market him. Because I mean, at the beginning of the day, J. Cole was a backpack rapper from here from Fayetteville, North Carolina. You know what I'm saying? But he went to St. John University, stayed in New York, and was back and forth from New York to North Carolina at the time. But when I heard Friday Night Lights, I immediately thought, yo, this doesn't have the mixtape feel. When it came on, it had the little intro, and then it had that Too Deep for the intro track with that Erykah Badu sample. And I said, oh, this is some original music on here. So I'm like, this is not a mixtape. Oh, this should be the, this should be the single. I mean, this should be the debut. And as soon as I finished the mixtape, I remember calling my man, J. Cole crazy this time, man. They got something here. He thought he's going to just be some underground rapper, but I see some potential of him maybe having a chance to be a star. That's kind of what I was thinking when I heard Friday Night Lights. Then when I did a little bit of research on Friday Night Lights, babe, one of the rumors from the record label for Rock Nation was during the recording of Friday Night Lights, they wanted a debut to come around that time, but the songs that they did at the time, they didn't feel were album cuts. So he added some freestyles over a couple other beats that are scattered throughout Friday Night Lights and made it his mixtape. But there are about 5 or 6 original tracks on the album, like Too Deep for the intro, Before I'm Gone, Enchanted, and In the Morning with Drake. Those supposed to have been on the debut album, but In the Morning with Drake was the only song that ended up on the debut album. And of course, Drake being a big star as well, it was great for the video, great for marketing, and they also did a couple of tour dates together at the time. So just going back, thinking about Friday Night, and I really wish they would have let those original tracks stick and add a few more songs that would have ended up being on that Cold Sideline Story. And I thought you would have had close to a masterpiece for his debut album, man. But I thought it was dope, man. What did you think, man?
Yeah, I had heard about him by the time the warm up came out. I was probably in a place where, I wasn't really accepting of a lot of new rappers. It wasn't that they were whack or whatever, but I kept hearing chatter from the internet. And, it's, people will say this now, but even back then, if for hip hop forums and comment sections were like, yo, y'all need to hear such and such. I need to hear J. Cole. I wasn't quick to run and go listen to him because it always felt like people were hyping up cats because they were new. And I remember when Friday Night Lights dropped, I had this thing sometimes when somebody's already had a whole bunch of stuff out, it's hard for me to go back if they drop something new. So Friday Night Lights came out and I was like, well, I'm gonna just listen to that. And, if he is what they say he is, then, I should be on board. And from the intro, I was locked in because, like you said, Tone, it was a mixtape, but it had an album feel, and he had a presence that suggested that he just wasn't a dude that can rhyme or just another rapper. His presence said that he was a hip hop artist, and he was sure of himself as an MC, and it showed in his lyrics. So records like Villmatic and all of that really captivated me at the time and kind of got me excited because it was like, I was happy to start liking some newer cats, because I'm not one of those older fans who cling so heavy to the 90s and everything else that I can't appreciate and like newer artists, especially newer artists who resemble the music of my past in some ways without, copying it. J. Cole's an extension of what we grew up with, as opposed to just being a copy of it. Because honestly, who wants that? As a real hip hop fan, why would you want that? But Friday Night Lights, man, I thought it was a dope mixtape. I got a couple of albums and mixtapes that just get yearly rotation from me, meaning Friday Night Lights every now and again, maybe twice, maybe 3 times, shit, maybe more, depending on how I'm feeling, will probably get listened to in its entirety by me because it was that good. Unfortunately, when the debut album came out, it just was not what I expected. And I think that had a lot to do with what Rock Nation wanted him to be versus what he was, like you touched on, Tone. So as far as J. Cole's debut album, when it dropped, the singles, well, let me give you a little bit of what I thought. When I heard his debut album, I thought they wanted him to be Drake so bad. They wanted their Drake version, even though he wasn't singing like that, and he tried on a couple of tracks. They kind of, I feel like they wanted him to be in that lane, and I think that hindered his success and kind of chased away some of his fans for the time being. When you first heard, what is it, a Cold Story, the Sidelines, something like that, Cold World, so
Cold World Sideline Story, yeah.
Sideline Story. When you first heard that joint, what did you dig it? Were you disappointed, or what were your thoughts on it?
Well, I had mixed emotions on it because I thought it was decent. And so when decent, that's not good because my expectations for J. Cole was sky high after listening to the come up, the warm up, and of course that great piece of work in Friday Night Lights. I was kind of like, okay, the bar's raised high. My expectations always high because I'm a old school hip hop dude. So yeah, the bar is always high. I don't, I'll never have. I don't look at a lower bar when I see so much potential in an MC. So yeah, were there some dope songs on there? Yes. Well, some of the beats on there pretty good. Yes, J. Cole is known to do most of his own production. Just real quick about the Friday Night Lights, J. Cole did about 11 or 12 songs on there. And, Timberland had a song on there, a beat on there, Kanye had a beat on Bill Wilders had a beat on there, and Pink was one of my favorite early Rockefeller in-house producers had a beat on there. It was that Ville-Matic, which ended up being the track on Dark Twisted Fantasy, Devil in a Blue Dress. But anyway, Sideline Story also featured J. Cole doing probably 80% of the production, which is the gift and the curse. Yeah, I do think they was pushing for that commercial success because the song, I believe, Can't Get Enough with Trey Songz, and then that workout joint and a couple other singles. I think they was pushing for radio play. He ended up getting radio play, and the album ended up doing pretty well. But again, my hope would have been taking, for example, the best 6-7 songs on Sideline Story and added them to those 6-7 original songs on Friday Night Lights, and I think that would have just been a masterful debut. I'm not mad at the debut, but it left a lot to be desired.
Yeah, and that's the perfect way to put it, because I was highly disappointed only because, and not with him. I wasn't really disappointed with him because I didn't feel like it was on him. I felt like Rock Nation wasn't doing what I expected them to do. Remember, at this time, he was basically the first Rock Nation cat on the label to drop something that's not Jay-Z. You know what I'm saying? So there was a lot weighing on him, and for a fan of Rockefeller Records, and you know what I'm saying, knowing their trademark and knowing Jay-Z has this situation over here, and he signed J. Cole, and I love the Friday Night Lights mixtape, my expectations were stupid high. But it just felt like they wanted to market him in a certain way instead of allowing him to be himself. And eventually he did get there, and it took a step, but it was a big step, and then he really capitalized on it. So when you heard Born Sinner, Tone, when the second album came out, what did you think about that album?
I thought it was production-wise possibly a step up from Sideline. I like Born Sinner. I probably listen to Born Sinner a little more than Sideline Story. But again, unfortunately, it kind of left a little bit to be desired again, man, because I think I was waiting on that classic album from J. Cole, because certain artists, I feel like, have that potential to actually have a classic album. Not a lot of artists, because classic is used too loosely. I don't use it loosely, but I actually think Cole is good enough to have a 5-mic certified hip-hop classic. And again, it fell a little short, but I did like the flow on it. I thought his production was a little bit more dynamic. I think he tried to experiment more with his samples and with his drums and stuff like that on the album. So I thought overall it was probably a better piece of work. But I was still kind of like, I'm still waiting. I'm waiting for that that knockout, that 12th round knockout before the bell ring. It just didn't get to that point to me. But again, I'm not mad at it because it's another subject. So this time he's solid on the mixtape end, to great on the mixtape end. He's solid with 2 albums. It wasn't whack, man. Neither one of them was the first 2, but they were good.
Yeah,
I don't know. What do you think about it?
I felt the same way about Born Sinner, because when I heard it, I felt like this is better, but not quite, because Friday Night Lights had become like the tentpole for me for him, because it felt like you put some of that emotion, some of that flavor from Friday Night Lights into this Born Sinner album more than you did the first time. But now I see they're trying to balance the two. They're trying to say, okay, the fans kind of want the J. Cole from the mixtapes on his album, but we had some success with these other records with him singing like TLC and Gloria Estefan or somebody like that, hooks. They had success with it. You know, it got radio play, and you could tell they were trying to balance out what was the best thing to do. How can we mesh those two together?
Now, you know what?
Yeah.
I mean to cut you off. That power trip with Miguel, that's another, again, that radio song, the same way they did with the track with Trey Songz, Can't Get Enough on the first album. But I did also like that Forbidden Fruit joint with Kendrick Lamar, because Cole sampled that Electric Relaxation Tribe Called Quest.
Yeah.
I think that's what they did with that one. So yeah, I mean, he tried to be a little more creative on that joint, man, on the album. I don't know, man. I still feel like he kind of somewhat missed the mark, man. I was just looking at track listing again on it, man, and the song Crooked Smile. I did like Let Nas Down. That was a very creative song, and then Nas ended up doing the remix, you know what I'm saying, with him. So that was real dope, man. So that Let Nas Down, we've been a Nas fan. I thought that was dope, man. And again, man, he had a couple of joints She Knows with Amber Kaufman. Yeah, man, Land of the Snakes. So yeah, man, he had a couple of dope tracks on the album, man. Again, and a lot of people really loved it, man. And this was during a time where he was really, really building his fan base. It really went up a whole lot. Sideline and the Born Sinner, man. So he was still doing a good job in terms of keeping himself relevant, man. And he didn't fall off. Some people fall off after their first album. He didn't. He was still going strong.
Yeah, and I think what played a major role in him staying afloat, having commercial success, but not quite hitting a mark as far as what people or original fans were used to, was the fact that in between these albums, he was releasing some fire mixtapes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not as long or completely expansive as Friday Night Lights and the ones that came before, but even like the joints he did that was like 5 records here and there, like there were 5 records of fire. But by the time he got to his 3rd album, Forest Hills Drive, I think we all, or most people, can admit that was the classic that you mentioned, Tone. When he dropped that album, man, what were your thoughts then? Did he meet your expectations finally?
You know what? When I heard the first track, that January 28th, I was like, okay, that's the way I wanted to hear album start off. That's his birthday. You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh, okay, the beat was dope. He was telling a life story. I said, okay, this Forest Hill Drive starting out real dope. You know what I'm saying? And I think he kept the momentum pretty good on the album, man. It was good. Do I want to call it a classic again? Oh, that's so hard for me, because when I think of this new era, I think Good Kid, Mad City by Kendrick was a classic. You know what I'm saying? So do I put Forest Hill Drive on the same level as Good Kid, Mad City? I'm struggling with that, Veg. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to think on that before the show is over with. But just kind of glancing again at the singles and everything. Apparently, it was a big single. Wet Dreams, No Role Model, Love Yours. I mean, he did a good job with the album. the track listed, man. It was some really good songs on here, man. But I don't, I like that GOE. Yeah, he had good videos for the album. I think he was still doing all those college pools at the time, so his fan base once again. The mixtape kept on growing. He was selling out stadiums by this time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So the music worked. Let me just say that Forest Hill Drive probably was his most complete project to that time because he touched on a little bit of everything from he had the mixtape vibe, he had the storytelling vibe, he had the conscious joints like the GOMD, you know what I'm saying? So he had the joints for the younger crowd in the clubs. I thought it was a real dope balance. I probably would give it a 4 out of 5 personally. But I'm not mad at it though, because Cole was still putting out good music. But once again, he was the primary producer on the album. He just will not go outside of making his own. Yeah, look, I'm not mad. You consolidate the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you want to get as much bread off your project, then by all means do that. You know what I'm saying? But, he never had a lot of variety because you can tell he's making most of the beats because every producer has a sound.
Yeah.
So the horns, the drums, or the whatever. So, but it was very good, man. Not mad at Forest Hill Drive. I still listen to a couple of tracks on it. What was your thoughts like looking back at Forest Hill Drive now?
To me, it's hands down his best album. I don't know if I could call it a classic, but I definitely feel comfortable saying it's his best album. It was the album for me that I finally felt like this is the mix. This is the perfect mix of Friday Night Lights and what Rock Nation wants to accomplish as far as on the commercial side. I felt like he was comfortable throughout. It wasn't, a J. Cole, that's the mixtape J. Cole, and then here's the radio J. Cole. He kind of found a good way to blend the two. So, records that on like the first album and the second album clearly said to you radio single. It was hard to find that on this album because anything on there was potentially a radio single because it was just that good of an album. But I really liked it. You know what I'm saying? I never really lost faith in him to the point where I wouldn't check for him. Because I felt like Born Sinner and the mixtapes kind of brought me back into the fold, and then Forest Hill Drive was like cherry on top. Now,
what, TJ?
Go ahead. Oh,
sorry about that. I didn't know if my sound was good. So one more thing too, that I know I said something about the GOMD track. If for anyone who are not really up on J. Cole or this particular album, if you YouTube that GOMD, the video is about a slave revolt. You know what I'm saying? So that's when you can tell J. Cole was really growing as an artist at the time. He also was down in Ferguson doing that Michael Brown stuff. He did that deep song he sang on the David Letterman show. You know what I'm saying? That free joint or whatever. So he was becoming that more conscious cat of his generation. Him and K-Dot were becoming real conscious. And that's always refreshing. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, when you go back to those videos, really going a little deeper than just, I can spit like he was on the early mixtapes. So even Friday Night Life and Sideline Story, he was just spitting rhymes, which is cool. But as you grow as an artist, your subject matter, your visuals, your videos, things like that, you start touching different topics as you grow as a man and grow as an artist. And I think Forest Hill Drive saw J. Cole at the apex of his artistry. So I think I would say that that's his best album, even though I feel like Friday Night Lights is his best project.
Oh, without it.
For me.
Without a doubt, man. That's why we're talking about it, because it's kind of like for every album, if people are following along, for every album we mention and break down, we keep coming back to Friday Night Lights because that's like, and that's his early work, but that's still kind of the tempo of where he kind of almost reached the climax for somebody who hadn't released a studio album yet to have a project like that, and everything you do is measured against basically a mixtape. That's extraordinary. But he kind of came pretty close in a lot of respects. Now, after Forest Hill Drive. Then we got For Your Eyes Only, and the talk on the internet and on the blogs as far as reviews and stuff like that was a lot of disappointment. Now, me personally, I didn't feel the album was bad. I just felt like, I think when he did the record about Kanye West prior to this album dropping, I think a lot of people thought that sound on that particular record that wasn't on the album was coming on this album. But this album was a little bit different, Tone. It was like really personal, you know what I'm saying? And really emotional, and it was a different J. Cole. You know, it was some consciousness in there, but it was more of a artistic J. Cole in the sense of the sound of the tracks he chose and the way he approached them. So when you heard For Your Eyes Only, what were your thoughts? Did you fall back to say, "Oh, what you doing? You going back in, you're going back down," or did you just dig it and felt like he was building upon what he already done?
Yeah, I think that I thought it was an okay album. I don't love it. Let me just first say that. There's no diss to it. I don't love it. But I appreciate any MC who can be vulnerable, who will talk about their life, their family, just dreams, aspirations, failures, etc. So, he was growing as an artist, and so I think he wanted to show a more artistic side just in general. And sometimes that doesn't resonate with hardcore fans because they're used to a certain sound. What I mean by that is, for Your Eyes Only, he co-produced a lot of the album instead of doing the songs by himself. If I look back at this, he had the guy Elijah, Cardiac, Boy Wonder, Elite, you know what I'm saying? Like all these different guys, BLVK, Childish Major, so the sound was different, not nothing that I love per se, but again, after putting this much work out and a lot of mixtapes and several albums, you got your time to be creating an album and try something different and see will it mesh with the fans. And for some fans it did. It was a successful album. Looking at it, it sold 363,000 copies the first week. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, it was a big album for that. It had good commercial success. All Music gave it 4 stars. The Guardian gave it 3 out of 5. Pitch Pop Matters 8 out of 10. XL Magazine Double XL gave it 4 out of 5. So it was received pretty well by the critics, and they received it a little bit better than I did probably. But again, he was still working, man. He was dropping out every other year at the time, and mixtapes and in between, and and maximize his creative juices, man. But again, I would definitely say Forest Hill was much better. I like Born Center better than this one. And to be honest with you, man, now looking back at it, this is probably one of my least favorite Cole albums because I think Sideline Story is better than this album as well.
Yeah, I think for me, what bothered me about this album had nothing to do, with him lyrically. Had more to do with he had a lot of points, a lot more than ever, where he was trying to sing, and J. Cole's not the best singer. There's a lot of people who aren't the best singers and they still sing, but whatever they were trying to accomplish with having him sing, and I'm not talking about just singing hooks, I'm talking about harmonizing, which is usually reserved for somebody who can actually sing. It just fell flat because it was kind of like it didn't sound like something that was planned. It sounded like when somebody's riffing in a studio trying to find what this record is going to be, trying to find the vibe of this record, and it just felt like they just left it in there. You know what I'm saying?
Was that the Drake? Was that a Drake factor? Was that some of the pressure from seeing these huge numbers that Drake was doing? Because obviously Drake does sing with some of his songs, but Drake actually can harmonize because he's a singer and a rapper. So
yeah.
Was it Jake's camp trying to capitalize on that wave of Drake? Or
I think some of it was Drake, but I think they tried that before with the first album and it didn't work. But I think it wasn't just Drake. I think it was dudes like Ty Dolla $ign and all these sing-songy, guys who were classified as rappers, but were clearly like singing on their records with auto-tune that were out. And, it was kind of like everybody was just doing it. That was, like younger rappers, whether you like them or not. And J. Cole had, just to give him a little credit, he had been doing this, but he would do it like a track here, a track there, maybe 2 tracks on each album, maybe even 3. But For Your Eyes Only, it was like every time I hit play on the record, this dude was like humming and harmonizing his way into the record. And I just was kind of like, it was a little bit annoying because it was like, it's not even necessary. I understand why you're doing it artistically. You're trying to do all these things and combine all these sounds and be relevant and still be true to your feelings in the moment. But I think it just missed the mark with a lot of fans. And I think just like with anything, like with 50 Cent's, I was going to say In the Club, Get Rich or Die Trying, how The Massacre wasn't that great of an album, still sold well, but it sold well because it was a follow-up to that debut. So Forest Hills Drive was his biggest record. And coming off of that, some people were going to buy it automatically. Some people were going to check for it automatically because it's coming off of that. It's following that album. And I think the backlash on the internet, just kind of changed people's perspectives on him and brought up something that we're going to touch on a little bit later. But let's just get to this final and most recent project, KOD. Now, this is another album that's a concept, but it's a little bit different from For Your Eyes Only. It's a little bit more deeply rooted in the concept with album cover and overall feel. Tone, when you heard KOD, what were your thoughts on this J. Cole album that was just totally different from all the other ones?
Well, I actually saw the video to the ATM first. And I was like, yo, this kind of dope, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like creativity. It reminded me of one of those 90s Busta Rhymes videos, the animation and the over-exaggeration and things of that nature. It was kind of cartoonish, but he was talking about money and basically what money does, and he had, he just showed the addiction of money and addiction of having things and fame. At the end, it can kill you. So there's a lot of symbolism in that in the ATM on KOD. I really like that. The album was a concept album. He touched some deep subjects. He went left field a couple of times, and I was like, well, again, he's tapping into those creative juices I was talking about. Now, real quick, the funny thing was, Veg, on my Twitter timeline, the day it came out, 24 hours after it came out, I was seeing all these diehard J. Cole fans call it a classic. It was a classic in 24 hours. And I was like, well, there is no such thing as a classic in 24 hours. I mean, not to me, but again, you can debate some instant classics. So let me retract that. You can debate some instant classics. So for some of these younger fans, they might feel like that the same way I felt like when I first heard Tribe Called Quest Midnight Marauders. When I went and bought that 12th grade or whatever and played it in my car, I was like, shit, it's a classic. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I gotta be old guy type thing right now and dissing the younger guys for calling it a classic. So for them it was. For me, I thought it was creative. It was not upbeat. So, you might want to not listen to what you're driving. It might put you to sleep on the highway. You know what I'm saying? Because it's real mellow for the most part. It's a very mellow album. You know what I'm saying? But just sitting around chilling and vibing and talking to friends, watching the game with it on mute, I could listen to it and have a drink of wine just kind of in the background and something like that. But it don't bang out like that because I don't think it's meant to. He's following the concepts, and I think he did a good job following the concept of the stories and the messages he was trying to convey on the album. I think it's a creative album. I'd probably give it a 3.5 out of 5 personally. Again, I feel like Forest Hill Drive is the better album. Not mad at J. Cole because he's now, when you add these last 2 albums, he's been pretty creative in terms of not being a one-trick pony. He's not just a backpack rap. You know, he's proven to be a complete artist with a different variety of songs and styles and concepts he's done. So I can't be mad at KOD because he's grown even more as an artist. It's okay.
Yeah, and when I first heard it, when I first saw the cover, when I first heard it, when I saw the videos, man, I was all in because I think, the fact that For Your Eyes Only was supposed to have a certain tone conceptually, I think it kind of missed the mark a little bit. Maybe it was too personal or whatever the case may be. But I felt like with KOD, I'm the type of hip hop fan. I don't want it spelled out for me. I want to look at that cover and look at those initials and say, what the hell is this and what's going on? I want to listen to the tracks and the guest appearances and dig deep into what message is trying to be conveyed. I don't want to go read an article. I mean, it's cool for some people, but I don't want to go read an article and have him explain to me what this entire album is about. That's taking all the fun out of it, At least that's how I always felt with like more abstract albums, and that's what this is. This is a more abstract project from him, and something he hadn't done with any other of the projects we named. And I think
you know what too?
Yeah, what?
Finish your thought. I'm sorry. Go ahead, finish your thought.
Well, yeah, I just kind of thought he was doing something good with this, and it kind of, again, For Your Eyes Only kind of made me be like, next time. KOD made me be like, yeah, I could deal with this. I don't need Forest Hill Drive 2. I want something different. You know what I'm saying? You got more life to come in this hip hop thing. So yeah, give us something different, man. But what were you gonna say?
Oh yeah, you know what? Just thinking real quick about KOD. Like I think the last track that dropped 1985. He still wanted to show like, yeah, I'm doing a couple of newer styles and newer tracks to stay relevant, but I still too. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But he kind of threw some jabs at the newer generation in like 1985. And I remember when that young kid, Lil Pump or somebody,
yeah,
he went on Instagram and Twitter and he was beefing with Cole, and a couple other young cats was taking offense to what Cole was saying about this generation and this style of rap. So at the end of the day, J. Cole he can kind of battle rap in a sense, like the old school 80s and 90s MCs. He was still, because let me just look real quick. Matter of fact, on that 1985, he said something like, I'll be around forever because my skills is tip top to any amateur niggas that want to get rocked. Just remember what I told you when your shit flopped. 5 years, you go be on Love and Hip Hop. You know what I'm saying? So he's still saying y'all are one-trick ponies, y'all are one-hit wonders. And I've been around since 2007, and it's 2018. So yeah, I'm the real deal. And I'm not here today, going tomorrow. So I think he was trying to push people to step their game up. You know what I'm saying? Same way Kendrick did when we talked about that Control verse way back a couple of years ago when they did that joint Shine Electronics.
Yeah,
Cole still can rap.
Exactly. And if you're watching this and that Control verse just kind of jogs your memory, go back because we did a whole video on that as well. But I think you hit the nail on the head, man. With J. Cole, people got to look at it, man. We used to look at other dudes like, damn, he been in the game 10 years. J. Cole has been in the game for 10 years, man. And the ratio of him having dope music is much higher than whack music. But some people don't know that because they don't know the mixtape. So let me just run through a couple of the mixtapes that he has out besides Friday Night Lights that are just as dope. The warm up, you named that earlier, but there was also tracks like or mixtapes like Truly Yours Part 1 and 2. Any Given Sunday mixtapes were dope.
Very dope.
Exactly, very dope mixtapes. What else? He had another one. I can't even find it. But nevertheless, like we said before, a number of mixtapes dropping in and out of these albums, and he has another one coming up for which he released a freestyle. and a Twitter post of Feed Me Beats. The name of this mixtape that's coming is called The Off Season, so it falls in line with the sports, side of things that he's known for with the mixtapes. Now, Tone, we've went over all these albums, and some of them, we gave high marks, and some we kind of was like, it's cool, but not the best. When it comes to J. Cole with the mixtapes, especially versus the album, I know I personally feel that he ain't missed yet on the mixtape side of things. How do you feel about his mixtapes versus his albums? Do they matter? Do they play a role in? Obviously they do, because you like Friday Night Lights. But do they play a role in how you and how maybe others view J. Cole as a hip hop artist?
His mixtapes is the gift and the curse of his career to me, because it's like Lil Wayne with the Dedication series and some of his mixtapes. Your expectations for the albums might even be unfair. You know what I'm saying? Or you might say, with the way his mixtapes are, it's a perfect blend and balance of a career. I keep it raw on my mixtapes. I get some raw with some commercial joints and club joints and stuff for different type of fans on the albums. And I'm trying to have this balance where I'm satisfying everyone. Okay, you didn't like this album? I just dropped this new mixtape for y'all backpackers. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm going back to the studio, so I got to make some bread. I got to make me some commercial bangers. I got to make me some stadium status songs so I can tour. Okay, I did that. Now I'm back to these backpack Any Given Sundays and Truly Yours and all this part 1, 2, 3 or whatever. J. Cole is not lazy. You know, so he's made a lot of music since 2007 to 2018. But he is batting the, he's perfect at the free throw line, man, with the mixtapes. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, I don't think he has a bad mixtape. You know what I'm saying? Now, album-wise, he has solid to good albums. I'm not saying he has a bad album. He just has some that I don't prefer to listen to, on more occasions. But the mixtape game is, I would even say, you can consider J. Cole one of the top 5 mixtape rappers of all time. You know what I'm saying? In my opinion, you know what I'm saying? That's coming with Lil Wayne could be number 1. I know some people don't want to hear that, but Lil Wayne mixtape game at one point, he was demolishing the game.
Yeah, it was.
You know, so if he ain't number 1, he right there 1, 2 or whatever. Cole is right up there. Is one of the elite top 5 mixtape MCs to me of all time. You like this and 2 or 3 other guys, man. But I would put Cole right there in that very elite Hall of Fame discussion of mixtapes. He does make solid albums. So that's kind of where I am, man. What I know you had said a few things about mixtapes, but what do you, at the end of the day, what does he stand at with you with mixtapes?
With mixtapes, he's flawless. It's just something about when he's in that realm, he's most comfortable. Even though he may think and sound like he's comfortable on some of those songs on those albums, I just feel like they come more across like a job. Sometimes we got a job that we do and we may be good at it, but we do it because it's our job. And then we got the thing we like to do on the side when we're not working, that we're passionate about, that we'll stay up all night to do or read about or look at. And that's how I feel when he does mixtapes. It's like he's going home. You know what I'm saying? And I think he's at his best when he releases albums that kind of service, both. But overall, I think, the mixtape game for him is flawless. I don't know where he would rank for me. I would have to think about it because there are a number of artists who've had at least series of mixtapes that are just right there with him, like you said, with the whole Lil Wayne thing. But this is the other thing I wanted to bring up since we're talking about J. Cole. Because in 2018 and even way before then, there was this notion that really came with the For Your Eyes Only album, that J. Cole is boring. And some people don't know why people hold him in such high esteem, because when they go listen to his albums or his music in general, they feel like he's boring. Now, Tone, we sat here and we've explained many reasons why we think he's dope. We decided to do an entire podcast on him. But what do you think about, what do you think people are thinking about when they call him boring?
Well, you know what? Some fans like more upbeat production. You know what I'm saying, or more, I guess, dynamic subject matter. You know what I mean? I can take it where I'll take a few upbeat tracks on the album, but I'm a writer, so I'm into lyrics. You know what I'm saying? J. Cole has lyrics, he has a lot of lyrics. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I can't use the word boring because I'm more or less listening to what the MT is saying. Because if that's the case, you know, somebody like Rakim or Nas is boring to some people. You know what I'm saying? Which is fine. Maybe that's the case. But for me, um, he's not boring. You know, it's like somebody saying Guru, rest in peace from Gangstar, was boring to some people. But for me, I was listening to what Guru was saying. So J. Cole being a lyricist and being a creative writer within hip hop, I can appreciate his his style and where he's going with his song structure. And again, certain songs like the and he's rapping a bunch of dope beats and rhyming fast, rhyming different styles, aggressively attacking the mic. So that's not the thing. One or two albums where obviously he was going for something different. He was going for a different sound. So for some of them, it's a slower, more melodic. You know, even like with the KOD, a lot of it's very slow and melodic. So I understand when some people would call it boring because it's not upbeat at all. You know what I'm saying? And it's not my favorite album in the world, but it is slow. So at times I can see somebody saying that, but like I said, I've heard people say Rakim was boring. I've heard people say, again, Nas was boring. I heard people say, a lot of different other rappers were kind of boring. Rick Ross, I've heard people say that. You know what I'm saying? I remember being in high school, people were saying Guru was boring. I'm like, Guru who, from Gangstar? You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, not at all. So I get it. I understand it. Every fan has a certain style they like. Everybody can't like J. Cole. I don't think he's boring. I appreciate what he's brought to the game. He's one of the elite MCs of this new era. I think he'll have a place in hip-hop history at some point because you can't deny 2007, 2018, the kid has been putting in work, man. So I don't think he's that boring. I just think that certain projects some fans gonna like more than others.
Yeah, and I think the whole boring thing, again, is coming behind the fact of expectations. I think, for what he's done that wasn't boring to them, it's been so good that people expect that. And when he starts coming from drugs or not even drugs, but an addiction type album that's, conceptually pretty dope when you think about all the different addictions he's tying into it. A lot of people don't like the execution. And when you bring up like Nas and Guru and all of that, I think it's the monotone style that today, people aren't used to that. When you think about somebody like Kendrick has a million flows and voices on his album, and they're all coming from him.
He's animated.
He's real animated. J. Cole can be more aggressive with his flow, and he does, but it doesn't sound that different from when he's not. You know what I'm saying? Which to a person can just sound like the same thing. They can't hear the nuance in his voice when he's being more aggressive. They need the words to be different in order for them. Well, the words are different, but to them, it's not that much different because that's his level. You know what I'm saying? His level's not Kendrick's level of completely trying to change his voice for certain tracks. But again, to each his own. If he's boring to you, so be it. But the generalization of him as just this boring MC is completely incorrect because Friday Night Lights is Exhibit A, along with all the other examples we've given you tonight or today or whenever you're watching this or listening, of why J. Cole is a very dope artist. So knowing that and knowing that the mixtapes, we just said it, are basically flawless, the next J. Cole project is a mixtape. And, we don't know when it's going to drop. It could be out now. You know what I'm saying? It could be whatever. It's called The Off Season. I think a lot of people are looking forward to it, to at least hear what's there, but we shall see. But, you know, the brother ain't missed with a mixtape yet. So now we get to the point in the show where we recommend an album that you can go back to and check out. And I just got to get the date down. But my album is from a time that's very close to when J. Cole just came out. From 2009. It's Rick Ross. It's called Deeper Than Rap. I feel like, I don't know if this is like, with Rick Ross, it's like Teflon Don, Deeper Than Rap. Teflon Don, Deeper Than Rap. You know, that's how it is for me. It's like Low End Theory, Midnight Marauders. Low End Theory,
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's one of those where it's like, you know, on Teflon Don, he just turned it up a notch.
He did.
But on Deeper Than Rap, that's when I became a fan, because I was like, this album is dope, man. This album is hitting on so many levels as far as my taste, my personal taste in music, from lavishly sounding, you know, rich tracks to just dope beats to hardcore stuff. He has so many different collaborations, from Nas to Foxy Brown to Trina, Gunplay. He had songs for the radio. He had hardcore stuff. You know what I'm saying? He had some little bit of trap in there. Most of that really came with the Teflon Don album. But nevertheless, man, if there was one project for me personally that I could say, yo, when Rick Ross came out, you know, or when I first heard Rick Ross, what was the joint that made me check for every album? It was definitely Deeper Than Rap. Let me just go over a couple of my tunes that I really like. I like Maybach Music 2, pretty dope. T-Pain, Lil Wayne was on there, a couple other people. Rich Off Cocaine.
Yep.
Yo, man, that's a ride. You ride to that, man. Like,
yep.
You know what I'm saying? That's just one of them joints that really captures a mood. Dope hook. Valley of Death was dope. I even like Bossy Lady, you know what I'm saying? I don't be on my hardcore all the time, y'all. A number of dope tracks on here, 14 songs in total, only 60 minutes of your time, which is perfect to me, because a lot of times dudes just overwhelm you with music, and sometimes all of it's dope, but you don't have time to be listening to all of that. Not every time. Tone, 2009, Rick Ross, Deeper Than Rap, man. What are your thoughts on that album?
Classic. Look, Rap the ride, man. I don't care if you're a Rick Ross fan or not. From that first track when he dissed 50 Cent all the way to the last track on there, and if you get the the deluxe, you get that cigar music. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, you got so many dope rhymes and beats on there. I used to pick my homeboy. We used to go to the club during that time, and every time he got in my car, he said, "Put that ripped off cocaine on there, baby." You know what I'm saying? We would ride to the club to it, cause it was just got that melody, man, that hook. You know what I'm saying? And then of course he had that what's that track? He said Valley of Death, man, and I mean the Maybach joint, man, and even the joint with Robin Thicke was dope.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm gonna say how dope Deeper Than Rap is. I was going to DC one day with one of my close friends, and we was listening to Deeper Than Rap and Ghostface Supreme Clientele, trying to figure out which one we liked the best. And that's saying a whole lot, because Supreme Clientele crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's my third high classic album. Is the Rick Ross best album to me. Now don't get me wrong, the Teflon Don, that's a classic too to me. You know what I'm saying? And I can't front on that. Rick Ross got some dope albums, man. Like him or not, the dude work. He got a dope album, Rapper Classic, man. So my pick for this week, October the 4th, 1994, which is one of my favorite years of hip hop. My man Common, the Chi-Town legend. Common drops his second album, Resurrection. So I was up on Common from Cannonball Dollar. You know what I'm saying? So I really like Common. He was Common Sense then. You know what I'm saying? So it was Common Sense on Cannonball Dollar. And it was more funny rhymes, charm alarm and breaker and all that stuff like that. So he was having fun. He was real animated. But man, he ended up dropping this song called "I Used to Love Her," and "I Used to Love Her," of course, is an ode to hip hop. He's talking about hip hop like a woman. Now, if you look at the songs of hip history, "I Used to Love Her" is one of those few perfect songs for hip hop history. You're talking about the message by Grandmaster Flash and Melly Mel. You're talking about, Suck MCs. You're talking about Juicy by Biggie. You know what I'm saying? The World Is Yours by Nas. G Thing by Snoop and Dre. Summertime by That's Jeff and Fresh Prince. If y'all get what I'm saying, Takes Two by Rob Bass. Whatever. You get what I'm saying. It's perfect. And so that's your signal to the album. It struck a chord with Ice Cube for some reason, and him and West Side Connection did the West Side Slaughterhouse and did Common, and then Common came back during time over Pete Rock, if I'm not mistaken, and did the Bitchin' You, which ended up being probably one of the top 5-6 dick songs in rap history. But man, Resurrection sold a very lyrical Common. The first track is Resurrection. Extra P ended up doing the Resurrection remix. Check that out for anyone listening on YouTube. Common's Resurrection Extra P remix. Trust me, it's dope. You had the song This Is Me, Book of Life, Nothing to Do, Communism. I mean, this guy was going off on the lyrics, man. The beats was dope. No ID for anybody who liked 444 by Jay-Z. Of course, No ID did the album. And No ID was Common's main producer for several albums.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And he completely produced Resurrection and the legendary track I Used to Love Him. But yeah, man, I mean, it's one of my favorite albums of that year. That's a tough year because obviously Red or Die, Illmatic, and Set Up Playalistic and all the albums dropped in '94.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So Common dropped. He dropped his album in the Scarface Diary. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, man. But he held up. It holds up to this day. I listened to it again last night. Big fan of Common, big fan of Resurrection. Lyrically, it was very complex lyrically, even though he had a couple animated verses here and there. He was real complex lyrically, man. This is a very dope album. I'll give it a 4.5 out of 5. Man, what you think about that Common Resurrection, man?
I was one of them people who were kind of caught up in everything else that was dropping in '94. But when I heard I Used to Love Her, that joint just stood out amongst everything because it was kind of like, damn, why nobody ain't make this a long time ago? You know what I'm saying? Like, it just made so much sense. No pun intended. But I felt like I came to that album a little bit later. So I feel like, and this is just me personally, sometimes when I come to things too late, especially when I like one of the albums that followed it. My favorite album is One Day It All Makes Sense, which followed that album, Resurrection. It was difficult for me to go back because Common was so different back then. He was becoming the Common we know now, but during Resurrection, it just was a lot going on, and so I wasn't up on it like the album itself, like everyone else was. But I would never deny that it's a tentpole album, you know what I'm saying, for Common. It's one of those joints that he definitely will be remembered by. People will jump to the more recent stuff because that's what happens. But when you hear that, I Used to Love a beat come in, and then yes, y'all, it's just so iconic, so attached to every fan's love for hip hop. You know what I'm saying? I could hear it in my head now, man. So it's a very dope album. Common's Resurrection out of 1994. Y'all need to go check that out or go back and listen to it. And also Rick Ross's 2009 Deeper Than Rap album. This is where it all started. It's the reason why some people will be like, yo, why everybody like Rick Ross like that, man? That's where he really stepped it up. Like Tone said, it's a classic. You can't really deny it. It just is. But what do you think about J. Cole, Friday Night Lights mixtape? Do you think he's a boring artist? Are you more of a fan of his mixtapes versus his albums? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Share it with people you know enjoy this type of commentary. J. Cole fans, J. Cole haters. We love to know from everybody, what do they really think about J. Cole? We respond to your comments in the comment section, so let it be known right there. You know what I'm saying? Well, let it be known then. You know what I'm saying? Like Snoop Dogg said. But that's going to do it for us, man. Make sure you visit enterthedome.com. That's ENTERDADOME.com. So you can check out some articles written by the homie Tone. You can also check out my audio podcast, Hip Hop Now Podcast, which is about news and perspectives. That's on SoundCloud, iTunes, and everything else. But please know, if you enjoyed the video version, but you don't always get time to watch it, maybe work, family, whatever, driving around, you can also listen to the audio version, which is on soundcloud.com/Hip Hop Now Podcast, or just look for Hip Hop Now on iTunes. It's all a part of the same stream. It's all going to the same two brothers doing it for the love of the game. Until next time, y'all, go out and support hip hop. And, you know, I mean, keep coming back. Subscribe. Why not? Peace.
Peace.
Drop it on the random.